Welcome back to another edition of This Month at the TNM. The subject we're going to look at today is kind of personal for me. I've been guilty of shying away from this term, and hearing Daniel's views on it has had an impact on me. Language is a vital part of human connection. It allows us to share ideas, thoughts, and feelings with others. It's meant to facilitate communication, not hinder it. Language has the power to build societies, but it also has the power to tear them down. While there are some legitimate discussions on how to improve our communications, there are also too many people who are working very hard to divide us in the name of political correctness. Some people want to force us to butcher the language to use terms such as chest-feeding persons or sperm-producing person. These are our mothers and fathers they're talking about. No, you don't get to force me to change my language to fit your warped perception of the world. The name of our organization is the Texas Nationalist Movement. Right in the middle of our organization's name is a word the PC crowd has worked very hard to turn into a dirty word. They try to equate it with xenophobia, militarism, and exclusionary policies, what they would consider right-wing policies. Some even throw in the made-up term white nationalist and want to say if you support nationalism, you're racist. This is one of their favorite tactics, and too often we give in to this type of groupthink and cringe a little when we hear the term nationalism. Often, those who seem to be the most alarmed about the word don't really understand what it means. The Cambridge Dictionary defines nationalism as a nation's wish and attempt to be politically independent, or the feelings of affection and pride that people have in their country. It even adds, nationalism is also the desire for political independence in a country that is controlled by or part of another country. Even CNN had to acknowledge that the term itself is innocuous in an article from October 23, 2018, aptly called The Definition of a Nationalist. The article was prompted by then-President Donald Trump's admission at a rally in Texas that he was a nationalist.
And you know what? We can't have that. You know, they have a word. It sort of became old-fashioned. It's called a nationalist. And I say, really, we're not supposed to use that word. You know what I am? I'm a nationalist, okay? I'm a nationalist.
Well, the left went into full meltdown over this. You know what the rest of us thought? We thought the word described exactly how we feel. We're tired of seeing our interests and concerns put on the back burner with other nations, countries, and political entities given priority. Want to know who else didn't mind Trump's use of the word? The rest of the world. Nationalism is the status quo for every single self-governing independent nation in the world. It's also been the single dominant political force in the last 75 years, with an explosion of over 140 new nation-states asserting their nationalism and gaining their independence. Political parties around the world, all across the political spectrum, use the word nation, national, nationalist, or nationalism in their names or their platforms. If you want to understand why there's this perceived stigma about the term nationalism, you only have to look at its counterpoint, globalism. While nationalism takes on the flavor of the nation where it's expressed, globalism is a narrowly defined ideology. It's easy to think of globalism as just the opposite of nationalism, but its ideology goes far deeper, and its supporters are far more dangerous than any nationalist could ever be. Aaron M. Wren, a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Policy, defined globalism as a worldview with four key elements: a borderless world, a global set of social and political norms that supersede all national norms and institutions, A belief that every decision made is weighed against its effect on the world without regard to your neighbors or countrymen, and the view that humans are nothing more than widgets that can be viewed similarly to goods or services. We've all seen the destructive effects of globalism and globalist policy. The globalist ideal of a borderless world is the heart of the federal government's actions on the southern border, creating an unprecedented public safety, humanitarian, and national security crisis. Globalist policies have turned a blind eye to the purchases of strategically located land in Texas by frontmen for the People's Liberation Army of China. Globalism has turned the economy on its head, opened up our schools as indoctrination centers, and destroyed energy independence in the name of sustainability. To globalists, you're no longer human, and therefore, you either accept your role as a pawn in their game, or you're taken off the board. While globalism may not be the exact opposite in meaning to nationalism, they are natural enemies. For globalism to be realized, nationalism must die. Globalists hate the very concept of the nation state. That's why they demonize it. And this is exactly why nationalism must exist and has triumphed over globalism for decades. For our part as Texas Nationalists, there should be no shame in our name. Either we embrace our Texas nationalism, or we surrender to the federal system and, by default, the globalism that they spread. It's that simple. I know there are those among us who would prefer that we change our name to something a little more touchy-feely. I was one of them. I'd wear my Texas Independence shirt instead of my Texas Nationalist shirt. Much like Christians who will never deny Christ and who would never consider calling themselves anything other than Christians to appease persecutors, we Texas Nationalists will never deny what we are, what we stand for, or what we do. We believe that Texas should be a self-governing, independent nation among nations. And that, fellow Texas Nationalists, is a hill we should be proud to die on. Thanks for joining us again this month. We'll see you next time.